Yeah.
If you've spent any amount of time in motion graphics, you've ended up in a situation where you've had a lot of layers in your composition and you've just needed to have a little bit more control. That's where pre-composing comes in. You can select multiple layers in your timeline, then in essence collapse those layers into one composition, still in your timeline. That composition then gets known as a pre-composition. To show you what I'm talking about, let's look at our composition. As you can see, we have two clearly defined areas of our comp, and I want to be able to animate the top part separate from the bottom part. But if we look in our timeline, we have 8 different layers that make this up. Now, since we know the order of layers determines the visual hierarchy, I'm going to pay attention to which layers are on top. And even though these are the bottom layers, they're on the top of the layer hierarchy. So I want to actually select, even though this is in the top of the comp, I'm going to select the bottom layers here in the timeline. So I'm going to select layer 4 and hold down Shift and click on layer 8 to select all of the layers underneath. Now, without pre-composing, if I wanted to move all of these layers as one unit, I would have to add keyframes to all the layers. I could do that, but that adds a little bit more processing, and honestly, there are some other limitations that come in. So let me show you. If I click and drag in the top part of the image, check this out. I'm seeing the other parts of these layers appearing. Now, if I want a clean edge to this, I can go ahead and pre-compose. So let me just undo this and go up to Layer and choose Pre-compose. When you're naming pre-comps, I recommend always ending that name with pre-comp. So here I'm just going to call this top pre. And we can just go ahead and click OK. And you notice I have a new composition here in my project panel. Now, just because I like to keep things extraordinarily well organized, I'm going to go ahead and drag this comp down to the new folder icon in the bottom of the project panel and rename this pre-comps. Now, if we go to layer 4 in our timeline, let's go ahead and click on that, make sure our timeline is active. I can now press P to open up the position data and click and drag on the x-axis to scrub and move the layer. Now look, if I drag to the left, notice the edges of my graphic are now completely cut off. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Now, for any reason, if you decide that you want to be able to see those extra edges, you can toggle your switches. So I'm going to toggle my switches so I can see exactly where my switches are. And I'm going to click this little collapse transformation button right here. It's just to the right of my little shy guy. If I click on that, look, now I can still see the edges of that graphic, even though it's pre-composed and only in one layer. Now, I'm just going to turn that off because I do like having the edges of that cut off. And we can go ahead and create our animation. So I'll just undo until I get back to the beginning here. Now, I want this to slide in over 1 second. So let's move our current time indicator down to 1 second and add a keyframe for position. If you press Home, that'll move your current time indicator back to the beginning. And I'm going to click in the upper part of my comp here and start dragging. And as I drag, I'm going to hold down Shift. It's really important not to hit Shift before you click. You want to grab it after. That way it'll stay snapped on the x-axis. Now I have my animation. If I scrub through, you can see that sliding in. Now, another advantage of pre-comps is the fact that I can actually still edit all those layers that are contained in the composition. So I want this top layer to slide in, and then I want the word dedication to slide into the scene. So I'm going to move my current time indicator to my second keyframe just by clicking this left arrow here. And now I'm at 1 second. So when we double click the top pre-comp layer, we're automatically opening that comp or pre-comp. And in the pre-comp, notice the current time indicator is at 1 second. So this is when I want this word to already be completely off the screen. So I'll just click the word dedication and start dragging to the right, and I'll hold Shift after I start dragging. And then I'll press Option P to automatically add a keyframe to the position parameter. Now in Windows, it's Control P. Now, if I move down the timeline to, let's say, 2 seconds, I can click and drag on the X parameter in the timeline, or I could just click right on the layer and hold down Shift as I drag and have the word slide into the scene. Now, if we go back to our dedication comp, you can see my current time indicator is at 2 seconds and the word dedication is all the way in the scene. So let's load up a RAM preview and check out our work. Now that those frames have loaded, I'm going to press the spacebar to play. So when it comes to organizing your compositions and still maintaining flexibility with your layers, Precompose is the feature to go to. Yeah.